Kia ora, everyone. We do apologise for those slight technical difficulties, and I'm just really hoping you're all actually there because I can't see you, but I have been confirmed that you are there. But welcome everyone to our Top Up Together webinar. Today you'll be hearing from myself and the lovely Kylie, who are both health promoters here at the Mental Health Foundation. Additionally, you might have noticed the amazing Ellen as well, who is an interpreter from Aotearoa and will be supporting us today, providing sign language webinar.
Got a
Before we
minor
begin, I just thought we would start
issue
with the
with the
karakia.
PowerPoint uploading. So we've just got about 1 more
He
minute
karakia
and
tātou.
we'll kick off.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te taonga, kia mākina kina ke uta, kia mātaratara ki tai. E he aki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Amazing. So before we get into it, I just really wanted to say a huge thank you for all of you joining us here today. I know that setting some time aside in the middle of Mental Health Awareness Week can be a tad difficult for many of you. So I really appreciate you all making Kylie and myself feel a little important enough to fit in your schedule. Also, I should acknowledge some ground rules before we start. This mainly being that if your mind is anything like mine, your inbox probably isn't going anywhere and it will be patiently awaiting your return when you're ready. So for the next 40 or 50 odd minutes, I would absolutely love if we could turn our attention to something even more important, that being obviously our mental health. So what actually is mental health? Now, I'll be honest, when we mention mental health, people often picture something a bit heavy or clinical. I mean, we often hear people speaking about mental health as if it's all about the absence of mental distress or illness. However, mental health is something that we all have. It's not just something that comes and goes. It's something that we carry with us all the time, just the same as we do our physical health. Here at the Mental Health Foundation, we think it's more helpful to think about mental health as a continuum or a scale that shifts and changes throughout our lives. Sometimes we're feeling great, and other times maybe not so much, and that's completely normal. At the end of the day, what's really important to remember is that everyone can experience good mental health and well-being, whether or not you have a diagnosis or experience with mental illness. Having symptoms doesn't mean you can't flourish or live a great life. I think this diagram on the screen really helps to show that. Someone can be experiencing mauri ora, even while managing mental illness symptoms. And then on the flip side to that, someone might not be experiencing any symptoms at all, but is still feeling low or disconnected. So what is mental distress? To give a bit of context, about 47% of us, or nearly half of us, will experience mental challenges at some point in our lifetimes. Again, this isn't to say it will look the same for everyone. It can show up in different ways or even at different points in our lives. But when you think about that number, realistically, that could be me, you, or someone you care about. Given this figure, we think that it's important to familiarise people with the right words. So what is mental distress? Mental distress is quite a broad term, really, that covers a whole range of experiences and feelings that aren't exactly present. These feelings can pop up out of the blue for lots of reasons, whether it be life stresses, changes, or challenges, etc. On the other hand, however, mental illness is slightly more specific. It's when someone meets a set of criteria and then are given a formal diagnosis. So while mental distress might come and go depending on what's happening in our life, mental illness is a defined condition that someone lives with. When we think about all of this, Mental Health Awareness Week is a great reminder that we do all, in fact, go through ups and downs in lives, and that's completely normal. But there are some really simple things we can do to help ourselves when things are going a bit tough. Fortunately, I promise I am no gatekeeper, so one thing that we do know in fact works is the 5 ways to well-being. The 5 ways to well-being were developed around 17 years ago after the New Economics Foundation ran a big piece of research back in 2008, being the Mental Capital and Wellbeing Report. The research identified 5 key things that people can do to boost their well-being. The great thing about the 5 ways to well-being is that they're easy to fit into your life, and they're even more powerful when you do so with others, whether that be your friends, whānau, or colleagues. So what do these actions actually mean in practice? Firstly, if we look at the top left one there, being mea whakawhanaunga or connect. This one's all about people and relationships. Really, it's the ngākau or the heart of our well-being. When we build meaningful relationships, we feel seen and understood, and it lifts everyone's well-being, not just our own. Second on the top right there, we have tukua, or give. Giving is all about kindness and generosity, but keeping in mind this doesn't have to be something massive. It can be small acts of kindness or just helping others out. For most of you, I'm sure doing good for others makes you feel slightly better and even strengthens your connection with them. Plus, these type of actions always seem to be weirdly contagious, so you don't quite know who you will inspire if you do this. Next, we have me kori tonu, or be active. Moving your body isn't just about exercise and keeping you physically healthy. It actually acts as a boost to your mental health too, even though, yes, I know, it doesn't always feel like it while we're doing it. The research on this suggests that around 20 minutes a day can actually boost your well-being by reducing stress and helping you to relax. I know there are many of you probably in here right now thinking, heck no, but I promise you that doesn't have to be joining your mates at F45 or taking part in the Auckland Marathon next month. However, if you are willing, I do have a colleague that would absolutely love for you to get involved in our fundraising. So I'm sorry, that is a little plug, but you're more than welcome to. But obviously, as I mentioned, there are some simple alternatives, just like vacuuming, gardening, or walking over to your colleague's desk. These all do count. Along these lines, this brings us into our fourth action, being me arotonu, or take notice. This is basically referring to mindfulness. So what we mean here is being present and paying attention to what's happening around you. This really helps in all areas, being our mental, physical, social, and even spiritual well-being. And it's important to remember that it isn't just about us. Noticing how our words and actions affect others is a big part of it too. And lastly, the fifth action is me akutonu, or keep learning. Learning keeps our brains active. It really helps us ensure we're constantly growing and evolving. I know for some of us, challenging our brains doesn't necessarily sound like a great way to spend our free time, but even just trying it with others could make it more enjoyable and help you gain a shared sense of understanding. So, if you have a chance, it's a really great way to help along your wellbeing journey. Now that we've summed that up, and we've laid a bit of the wee groundwork and hopefully done so without any technical difficulties, I will pass the kōrero over to the lovely Kylie, who will delve into mental health in the workplace and how we can top up our wellbeing together.
Hey everyone, thank you for sticking with us through here, and I can see it's working because we're not losing participants at a very fast rate. So thank you for that. Look, in the second half of this, I'm going to look more at mental health in the workplace, the importance of collectively working to improve wellbeing and the benefits for organisations when they follow that process. But I have exited our slide person from the room. So I'm going to do this weird little click thing. There we go. Okay, so look, when we're looking at wellbeing in workplaces, I separate it into kind of three different components. So as most of you will know from your health and safety team, we have within the Health and Safety Work Act that all businesses are actually legislated to do psychosocial harm prevention. Now, what that means as a workplace, you are doing as much as, and the wording is reasonably practical, to ensure that health and safety of your staff. And that does include managing risks that are a risk to mental health and wellbeing. Okay. WorkSafe have put out an amazing document that I would highly recommend you have a look at, and we're going to send that out post-workshop if you've registered for it with us for the workshop. So look at that kind of psychosocial hazard, and they give you a whole process when we're talking about that side. So psychosocial hazards include things that impact mental health, like work design, social factors at work. Now, an example of this could be things along the lines of bullying and harassment, for example, or anything that is existing in the workplace that is happening to your staff that could impact their mental health. Okay, when we look at work design, we're more looking at workload. Is that having a major impact on your staff's mental health? And the other one is your work environment and how that is set up and the impact that has on mental health. Okay, so those are your kind of legislated requirements. And look, if you've got health and safety teams, they are amazing at this stuff. So really listen to the process that they've done. It's not that much different to the process you do for kind of preventing other risks in the workplace. Okay, but what psychosocial hazards do not include are probably what we're talking about today more. So that's your general well-being, that's your health promotion, and including mental illness that staff may experience, unless that mental illness is directly linked to the workplace. Okay, so an example of where mental illness might be directly linked to a workplace, for example, if there is a traumatic incident in the workplace and that person is impacted either short-term or long-term, perhaps reliving the trauma or experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder as a result. Okay, so in that case, it would definitely come under the psychosocial hazard. But if you are a person who experiences mental illness and you are experiencing that whilst in a workplace, which given 25% of our population experience mental illness in their lifetime, if it's not directly linked to the workplace, it doesn't come under that legislation. Okay? And that's where what we call psychological safety and the work that the Mental Health Foundation does becomes really important. Okay, and I've been in worked within a lot of corporates where we've been through this process, and you can have all the risk prevention in place, but if you don't have psychological safety in place, where you are creating an environment that is safe for people to communicate what is happening and being able to raise challenging situations, then your risk hazard identification becomes really, really difficult. Okay, so the two work together when we're doing this. Okay, the other part that is vital, and this is a lot of the work we do over Mental Health Awareness Week, is that it's vital to build in those health promotion strategies for your staff. Because what's undeniable from the research is the workplaces that focus past the kind of legislation and focus more into what can we actually do to help our staff's well-being, like we would do for our whānau, for our community, and build that well-being, they have much better outcomes for their staff. Okay. Now, when we talk about the top up together and the collective approach to this, it becomes really, really important in a workplace. Because I'm sure some of you online have worked in places where this hasn't been the case, and you'll know how distressed you can become and the energy that it takes to get up and go to work each day when that's the culture and environment that you're working in. Okay, now the 5 ways to wellbeing in the workplace, we have a number of our partner organisations have started this process where they've used the 5 ways to wellbeing to kind of collectively work on that wellbeing for staff. And I'm going to do my weird clicking thing for Sarah. She's on it. Okay, so if we look at how health promotion can benefit your workplace, there's a few things we know from doing this over the years that's really helpful. And why weeks like mental health awareness are really important, because they raise that conversation, they start the conversation, and they give a lot of information, a lot of messaging. So, you could hear it up to 100 times over Mental Health Awareness Week, and that sticks in our brains. Now, what workplaces can do is take this messaging and put it across a longer period of time and make it what you do in the workplace instead of what you do for Mental Health Awareness Week. And that's where we see the really effective change happen. Okay, and when we put these in place, we find those other 2 areas that we talked about, the psychosocial hazards and creating a psychologically safe workplace, come out of those, and people pay more attention to them. They move past a policy document and they become what you do and who you are as a business. Okay, so let's look at some examples of how we can do this. And we've got a huge variation of companies and organisations online. Some of you are very large and some of you are very small. And my advice to you is to start with the easy wins. Find the people in your organisation who are passionate about wellbeing and start small. It doesn't have to be a massive, massive health promotion campaign to be effective and reach the people who need to hear. Okay, so Connecting can be done in a variety of different ways within workplaces. So it can be the basics, like have a look when your team comes in the morning. Do people come in? Do they look up from their keyboard? Do they say hello? Kia ora, morena. How do you greet as a team in the morning? If you've got staff working from home, are they included in that process of connecting in the morning? One of my favourite parts of the day at Mental Health Foundation is at 9 a.m. every morning we do karakia, and whether you're in the office or online, you join that and you feel like you're connecting with your teams, okay, and you know what's happening going forward in that day. So it's a really great way. In bigger organisations, I've just seen little bulletins go out that welcome everyone in, give them an idea of what's happening for the day, of any upcoming things that people might like to know about. And just those small little actions make a big difference. Okay, if you're a people leader or a manager, it's even more important that you're doing this. Okay, so role modeling is a great way to actually make that small step and getting some of these across your organisation. So are you greeting? Are you checking in on your staff each day? Are you seeing where people are at and how they're going work-wise? Has something happened for them that you need to know about for the day ahead? The other thing that's really important to remember when we're connecting is that we all connect in different ways. Okay, and we have a little bit of a kind of culture within Kiwi workplaces where most of the connection we plan tends to be quite social, interactive. It might be going out somewhere, it might be team building activities, but not everyone connects in those ways, and not everyone is able to connect in those ways. Okay, so really knowing your teams and a variety of different ways to connect is important. Okay? But the main thing is start somewhere. So even if it's tomorrow, I'd love you all to walk into your office and walk around and just say hello. You know, if you're in an office building, walk to a different floor, see what's happening. Awkward, but quite interesting. Talk to someone in the lift as you're going through. If you're perhaps more isolated in the work you do, perhaps organise a quick Zoom with someone. If you've got neighbours close by, you might connect in that way. It might even mean going into a coffee shop where perhaps you're not going to be talking with anyone directly, but we know from the research that just being around other people makes a massive difference to our well-being. Okay, so go and be in a place where you are near other people. If you are really not peopling tomorrow and you're like, Kylie, I'm not talking to people tomorrow, I've got some more good news for you. Pets. Pets are a way that we connect with other living beings in the world, and they provide us with that dopamine and that hit that we need. So even take a walk with a dog, pat one as it walks past, find a kitten, and, take that moment to really connect. The next one we've got on there is giving back. Now, of course, as a charitable organisation, we love a bit of giving back, but it doesn't always have to be monetary. Okay, giving back to other people is one of the top ways that as humans we get that hit of happy hormone that makes us feel like we are part of a community and that we are helping other people. Okay, so it could be, when you're in a rush, last minute, you're heading up the lift to work, or you've got to get in an Auckland transport bus. Everyone's a little bit awkward about how they're going to board, but standing back and just saying morning and letting someone go ahead of you. Okay, holding the door open, holding the button on the lift instead of pressing it to shut really quickly so that no more people can fit in the lift. Okay, checking in on a colleague who has got a big project coming up, and maybe you've got some space where you can help with those things. Is there something we can do for you today? Okay, baking, my personal favourite. Feel free to bring in some baking. Love that. When there's a cake in the office. Okay, all of those are little ways that we give back. We also see a lot of our partner organisations do kind of events where they are fundraising for causes, and that really brings the team together and gives people kind of the opportunity to feel passionate about what they are doing and that they are really doing it for the better of wider communities. Okay, be active. this is you can just put this in as many ways as possible during your workday. And, I've seen some workplaces do some massive things around Be Active, but it also doesn't have to be huge again. You can start small. Is it that you've got a meeting with someone and instead of sitting in a meeting room, you go for a walk and have a walking meeting? Is it when you get there in the morning and you sit down for a team meeting and you can see that the energy is a bit low, that you actually just take a moment to get outside, take some deep breaths, do a quick wander around the block, see what's happening before you start your working day? Okay, so the main thing in here is consistency, and that there's so much that we're fed on social media about physical activity, and take it back a notch in the workplace, and it's just anything that you can do consistently. Okay. So adding those into your day. The other thing is giving your staff the opportunity to include activity in their day. Okay, so having worked in a range of workplaces, I've worked in some where, you went to go to the gym at lunch and your class went over and the shower was kind of full. So you were back 10 minutes late. You didn't have time to eat your lunch. So you kind of grabbed it as you went back to your desk, and you were getting the side eye from someone who's like, I've been gone a long time this lunch break, haven't they? Okay, give people the benefit of the doubt. They are trying perhaps to put something in their day that A, makes their well-being better, but also is going to help your team concentrate for the afternoon and really get that kind of collective enjoyment from it. Take notice in the workplace, I think, is a really interesting one. And we saw kind of the mindfulness and the breathing techniques and the way people have done that. And I think I'm really aware of the different ways that we can take notice. And I think in workplaces, the first option for really taking notice is to be aware of the people around you, reflect on your own behaviours and how they affect the people around you, and take notice of what lifts up the people around you. Because if there's one thing we can all do in our day, it is make someone else's day a little bit better, okay? And you never know where people are at when they walk in that door in the morning, and a small action from you, or knowing that you've noted that they're not doing so well. Just a conversation saying, hey, are you all right today? Is there anything I can do? You seem a bit flat, okay? Actually, people knowing that our mental health goes up and down is really important, and that people check in on us. And that person might not want to tell you all the details, but I can tell you it makes a massive difference to someone, just that someone has noticed that they're perhaps not doing okay, or that they're doing really well. Like, it's a super day today. I managed to shower, I managed to do my hair, and I managed to get in here on time. Okay, so it's celebrating those moments as well. Keeping on learning, I find workplaces do really well, and I see so many great things. You kind of lunch and learns that people have options to hop onto, your professional development that you've got coming in. And while I know you have to prioritise that professional education that is relevant to your workforce, there's also great benefit in using learning for the communities within your workforce. Okay, so perhaps, like me, you've got a whole lot of perimenopausal middle-aged women. We could really do with some help and education around that. And there's been a lot done in workplaces around that that's been really helpful. Okay, if you've got parents working for you, maybe bringing in some parenting advice and talk. Looking at how we include all of our community. When we're looking at our hearing impaired population, our neurodiverse population, education is always a really great place to start to understand where people are at and how they're experiencing the world. Okay, so that we can then make sure we are making what we do collective and inclusive of everyone. Okay, so hopefully that gave you some idea. My advice to you would be, pick one to start with. Pick an easy one in your workplace. Okay, what one of these 5 ways to well-being do you think is going to fly with your team? And it's going to be different in every workplace. And just focus on that one bubble for 4 weeks. And just, even if it's once a week, you're sending out some information, or you're including people in activities, and you're making it a little competition. We all love a bit of competition in there. and just include something new each week. Next month, swap to another one. Okay, and then just slowly include them as we go through, and they just become what we do. Okay, and it's not at the detriment of making psychologically safe workplaces or making sure that we are reducing those psychosocial harms. It is as well as. All of these work together to increase the well-being in our teams. So I really do wish you all the luck in this, and we're actually going to we're going to skip 2 slides, Sarah, if you're listening, and just play a little video of some of the organisations that we've worked with. We're going to go 2 slides. Perfect. And let's just play this one for you, just to give you a little bit of a rest from listening.
I just think it's a no-brainer. You know, most of our team are under 30, and that's where a significant mental health problem sits.
We know the partnership with the Mental Health Foundation is working because since we've had that partnership, our retention has dramatically improved.
Raising money for the Mental Health Foundation. So, the more kilometres we run, the more money we raise.
Having a good mental health is part of that whole vitality wellbeing journey that we've got going here at AIA.
Last 30 seconds. Bring it home. It's all for charity, mate. It's all for charity.
We call our program People Presence, and it's our code to talk about the stuff that's tough. What we're doing with those t-shirts is ensuring that people have the ability to show someone else that they're thinking of them.
For this week, we've aligned with the Mental Health Awareness Week, and we're doing a campaign out there around 5 days, 5 ways. Each day is one of the themes, and we're asking people to post on an internal social media forum with posts that they're doing, things that they're doing in their daily lives, like taking notice. We've had a number of dogs go up, a number of people with, coffee dates, children, out in the sun, gardens, all going up with the hashtag 5 days, 5 ways.
It's Mental Health Week, bringing all the people, as many people together as possible, having these little challenges. I think it's absolutely awesome.
I know when people are struggling, I know when you can surround them and actually go deeper than just how are you? Do you want to come along for a walk on the beach, or should we go for a run, or should we go for a bike ride together? That time with those people, it can just be a game changer.
We have had a number of retail team members who we've kept jobs open for a number of months, and they have returned. We don't go above and beyond because we think we are special or, we want to prove others wrong. We just do it because we care.
The partnership with Mental Health Foundation is given back to us in resources and time and energy and in ideas. They've come to the party with exactly what we've needed and more.
It's just part of our lives now, mental health.
There's some really amazing examples in there of, just starting where you're at and seeing how it grows from year to year. And, it becomes a thing and people look forward to it. And it happens outside of Mental Health Awareness Week. And it really raises the bar for how your staff experience their workplace and their community. Sarah, can I just get you to go one more back just as a little summary for me? There we go. So look, if you're starting from scratch or if you're a little bit further down the pathway, this is from our Working Well guide, which this was done a few years ago now, and it's on our to-do list at the moment. We're working with a whole lot of workplaces to update that and include the new legislation within it. But I think it's still really valid for today. And this shows you those kind of 3 different branches that you can work across, and they can happen at the same time, or you just start with one and build from there. Okay, so that addressing mental health issues is that psychological safety we're talking about. And I think it's a great place to start because the other 2 are really hard. If you don't have processes in place where staff feel comfortable raising when they're not doing so well, and when the experience they have when they do disclose feels unsafe. So that would be a place that I would really look at if you're starting on your journey. Do you have kind of multiple ways for staff to be able to do that? Promoting positive mental health. Yes, we can do the big health promotion campaigns, but we actually all play a role in this. Okay, and I think the biggest part is that kind of take notice for ourselves and reflect on where we're at. Okay, so how do we regulate our own emotions? Or if we have circumstances in the workplace where we don't regulate, how do we then respond to that? Okay, and how do we write perhaps what wouldn't necessarily be something we would usually do in a workplace? Okay, role modeling is number one through the research, hands up, shown to be effective. So when these behaviours are role modelled by our senior leadership teams and our managers, then the workforce who work in partnership with them tend to have higher levels of wellbeing every single time. Okay, and communication skills are really important. You know, mental health is a tough subject, and there are tough things that happen in workplaces. We're there a lot of our time in a week. So encouraging those good communication skills and getting on top of those challenging situations quickly so that they don't escalate into kind of unhealthy, unsafe situations for people. With the new legislation coming through around the psychosocial harm, up your knowledge about it is a really good place to start. Okay, so look at the WorkSafe documents that have come out. Know that you probably have some specialists in your team within either health and safety or HR who can help with these processes. Or if you don't, you know, that workbook that WorkSafe have put out is a really good place for your team to start to go through that process. Okay. So those are 3 ways to start kind of taking a deeper dive into wellbeing in your organisation throughout not just Mental Health Awareness Week, but throughout the rest of the year, and really making a flourishing and thriving workplace culture. Hopefully that gave you some great ideas. One of the things we're hoping to do from here, and that's been really useful when we've been working with our partner organisations, is forming kind of regional hubs of people who are passionate about this or doing wellbeing within their organisations, so that we can connect you regionally to each other, so that you can take ideas off each other and just top up together and really see what other organisations are doing, what works in certain types of workplaces, and also for us to be able to feed you that knowledge around best practice and effective change for your communities. So we're really excited about that, and the information, if you'd like to sign up to one of those regional networks, will be in the email that we forward to you after the workshop. Okay, so we did have a couple of questions. This is our final little huzzah. So if you do have to shoot off and grab yourself some lunch, feel free. But question-wise, we had a few come through that were really good just pre-workshop. So one of the questions is around common things that we see for poor or low mental health for deaf people in workplaces is when there's cultural clashes, language discrimination, and what would we suggest workplaces do when there is a majority culture, e.g. a hearing culture, in a place with staff who are from a minority culture, e.g. deaf people. But I think this goes across a lot of communities as well as ethnicities, religions, neurodiversity. You know, that question kind of covers across those. So look, I think, again, it's been reflective as a workplace. And sometimes we're not so great at this in New Zealand, and we kind of stick to status quo without thinking about who's in our team, who's in our community, and what do they need to feel connected, to feel part of things, to ensure that they have everything that they need to do their job in an equitable way to people who don't experience those things. Okay, so I always think the first step to this is a reflection exercise. Okay, really understand your workforce and your people, and from there, seek support. You know, look at where the specialists are in those areas where your community might be experiencing. Talk to your people. What do they need? And listen to their voice, because that voice becomes really important in what you put in place next. Another one is, do you have any suggestions for specific industries about how they care better for their staff mental health? And this one was particularly directed for people who work within mental health services themselves. and another professional who supervises those staff, realising that they were taking on the role of mental health support. And again, this falls into that psychosocial hazard risk. Okay, so if you have a work environment that is impacting people's mental health, then it is with urgency that we need to not only put support in for those staff, but we need to look at what the cause of that distress is. Okay, because as a workplace, you are responsible for ensuring that you reduce that risk to staff. Okay, so starting that process down the psychosocial hazard route would be my suggestion in there. And the other one is around kind of questions around any CBT seminars or upcoming mental health speakers and events. What we're hoping is that once we've got those regional hubs and networks set up, we'll be able to disseminate that information regionally to you and share that nationwide as well as we go forward.
Just to end, we'll finish on a karakia, so me karakia tātou. Kua mutu au mātou mahi o I tēnei wā, manaakitanga mai mātou katoa, o mātou hoa, o mātou whānau, ai o ki te aorangi, haumia hui e taiki e. Amazing. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it. Amazing. So before we get into it, I just really wanted to say a huge thank you for all of you joining us here today. I know that setting some time aside in the middle of Mental Health Awareness Week can be a tad difficult for many of you. So I really appreciate you all making Kylie and myself feel a little important enough to fit in your schedule. Also, I should acknowledge some ground rules before we start. This mainly being that if your mind is anything like mine, your inbox probably isn't going anywhere and it will be patiently awaiting your return when you're ready. So for the next 40 or 50 odd minutes, I would absolutely love if we could turn our attention to something even more important, that being obviously our mental health.